Hi, lovely to have you here. Welcome to the Electro Revolution channel. My name is Michael and I'm a car and tech enthusiast. In this series of episodes, we're going through a full review of the BYD Atto 2, which is a vehicle that's soon to hit Australian shores. Now, this is the third part of a series, a multi-part series so far. If you haven't watched the first two parts, which is the first two episodes, I really invite you to go watch those first. In episode 1, we give a general overview of the vehicle and how it competes with the Hyundai and the Kia EV3. They're the SUVs which it actually battles against. We took a look at various comparisons there with storage systems and stuff like that. And then we moved on to episode 2, where we looked at the interior of the vehicle. We stepped inside of it. We took a look at all the interior. So I won't go into that because I've covered that pretty well in the second episode. Now in this episode, what we're looking at is the external of the vehicle. So we're looking at things like how the LED headlights are, how the wheels are, how the back spoiler is, things like that. And we also look at the powertrain, the power that we get, or the version of the power that we get in Australia, which is different from overseas. We're going to cover a lot of this stuff in this particular episode. So I really hope so far that you're enjoying the series, and I really hope that you enjoy this episode. And now let's looking at its exterior. I think it actually is meant to be a head turner because the way BYD did this is they got a designer, his name's Wolfgang Egger, and he's essentially a legend from the Alfa Romeo, Audi and Lamborghini areas. So this thing is, I guess, meant to be a head turner. Now, I know when I looked at the exterior of this vehicle, I actually quite liked it. It does actually look good to me. Of course, it's a subjective opinion. You may consider something that maybe looks better or something like that, but to me, it does look pretty good. But nevertheless, let's dive into the exterior make, look and feel. Now, starting at the front, we're greeted with sleek LED headlights and that slim daytime running light, which I'm accustomed to with BYDs now. That gives it a sharp, modern vibe. Flip into the rear of the vehicle and there's a full width light bar. Now, this is new from the way I see it, the way BYD used to design the older vehicles compared to the newer vehicles. A full width light bar that connects these super cool Chinese knot lights, I guess that's what you would call them, tail lights from end to end of the vehicle. I think they look quite good. BYD says these lamps, they're styled in the number 8 and a Mobius infinity ring. So I'm not exactly sure what that means, but the way they explain it is it's a symbol of endless good luck. So I guess what they're trying to say is if you drive this vehicle, you'll be lucky. Anyway, that talks about its design and it's got some meaning in its design. And looking at the Atto 2 silhouette, well, you can think of that like a jacked up version of the BYD Dolphin. Now, I typically don't like the way BYD Dolphin looks, but I gotta admit the Atto 2 looks a lot bulkier. It's got a slightly longer body and a shorter wheelbase. So it's got a slightly chunkier feeling, a slightly chunkier style to it. And that's actually something I do actually like. Now, the China version that was wheeled out for review for most of the marketing people and most of the journalists, when they did look at it, it rolled out in 16-inch alloy wheels. Now, I gotta admit, 16-inch don't look as good as 17-inch. They will give you more range. However, I think the decision that BYD have made to roll out the Australian model in 17-inch will actually be, quite better for the Australian market. I don't know too many people who'll actually go down to a 16-inch or 15-inch rims for those particular vehicles. It's not as appealing, in my opinion, to the Aussie market. Note also the Atto 2 has blacked out A pillars and C pillars. If you're not sure what those are, essentially they're on the side trims. You've got the black holes there. The A pillar is that part, the B pillar just above the head of the front row passengers, and the C pillar in the back. They're essentially sturdy sides of the vehicle that give sturdiness to the vehicle. Now, they have made them black, so it kind of does look a lot better on the outside with black portions there. It also has black cladding lines on the bottom of the doors with the racy twin ridge rear spoiler, and that adds a sporty flair to the vehicle. And I know they've also included that in the 2026 Atto 3, that same top spoiler there. So if you combine that with short front and rear overhangs, essentially you've got a better approach to departure angles, and it's perfect, I guess, for reinforcing that this particular SUV has some credibility and has some strength to it. And BYD Australia has confirmed that all the door handles are flush. Now, they're trying, I guess, to get this in before the Chinese government outlaws it. But nevertheless, it does make it look more modern and more sleeker in its exterior. The body's design, it does mix rounded edges with sharp angles, and that gives it a more dynamic and energetic look. It's got a look of a floating roofline, and that's paired with that panoramic sunroof, and that gives high mounted spoilers. It kind of gives it its own character and personality, unlike other SUVs. It kind of tries to set itself apart. And of course, with the 17-inch sporty alloy wheels, it kind of ties it all together. There are color options. The options are climbing grey with optional hiking green, skiing white, and cosmos black for those who want to really stand out. So I can see here what BYD are trying to do. They are trying to differentiate themselves and not just give you another run-of-the-mill compact SUV. They're actually trying to set themselves apart by giving them a better look than what you would normally get, say with the Dolphin, for example. Yet they're keeping things practical for everyday living and everyday life of the individual that uses this to go shopping or to take short weekend trips. So to sum up this section on the Atto 2's exterior, they're trying to serve the looks, the luck, and the SUV versatility all in one package. Which features have got you hooked? Is it that Chinese knottail, the lights, or that panoramic roof? Drop your comments in the area below. Now let's look under the bonnet. The performance, the power, and the driving feel. So if we pop the hood, well, sort of, on the BYD Atto 2, we check out its powertrain and how it feels on the road. This compact electric SUV is bringing some serious zip into Australia. Let's dive in and let's see what makes it tick. Now the electric motor sits low in the bay, and that leaves a lot of room that could potentially fit an aftermarket storage solution for those who really want to maximize space and actually have a frunk under the bonnet. It's clean, efficient, and a nice setup, keeping focus on the performance of the vehicle. So speaking about performance, let's talk about power. In China, it's called the BYD Yuan Up. The Atto 2 comes with a front-mounted electric motor, a front-wheel drive, and that drives the front wheels. Now, you know some of the comments I've made in earlier videos, if you haven't watched those regarding front-wheel drives. Yeah, rear-wheel drives are better in handling, turning corners, accelerating off a stop. Now in China, you do get two different outputs for this vehicle, but BYD Australia have confirmed that we get the higher end one, which is a 130 kilowatt version with 290 meters of torque, and that comes standard. That's available in both the essential and the premium trims when it actually lands down under. So how does it drive? Well, we don't have the vehicle here to test drive it in Australia at the moment, so all we can go off is for the reviewers that actually went to China at the launch of the vehicle in China from BYD. Now what they said is they essentially were able to spin around a cone circuit track in a car park. So it's not exactly like a racetrack, but it was enough to get a feel for it. Again, they tested the 130 kilowatt 290 Newton meter engine, and they pushed through the front wheels. What they said is it's sprightly when you want it to be, hitting 0 to 100 in a respectable 7.9 seconds. In economy mode, it's a bit more laid back, but flip it to a sports mode and you'll feel that instant EV torque, which is what you expect from EVs. Those reviewers also said the steering is super light, and that typically makes it a breeze to weave through tight and urban streets or even parking lots. So if you're one of those spirited drivers, you might want a touch more feedback, but it's spot on for city cruising. So the Atto 2, it handles corners with decent grip and good traction. And when you push it hard, there's even a hint of playful lift-off oversteer for some fun. Now, discussing the ride quality. Well, from the reviewers overseas, they said it's pretty solid. Shallow speed humps, they're no trouble, though the parcel shelf might rattle a bit. And again, that's nothing a quick fix can't handle. Like if you got anything loose there with loose keys or anything like that, just move them to the center console. The suspension also soaks up most bumps well, but with the smaller wheels and taller sidewalks, there's maybe a bit of body roll on the corners. Now, that's on those Chinese models, not on the Australian model. So you got to take that kind of review as a grain of salt until we can actually test drive them here in Australia. Now, that does change, of course, with the 17-inch rims. The reviewers were driving on 16-inch rims, so it will tighten up the corners somewhat with much larger rims. Plus, they've said the Atto 2 feels rock solid under heavy braking, and that does give you confidence when you need to stop fast. So what do you think about the Atto 2's performance? Is this punchy enough for you, or it's something you'd still need to maybe take a test drive just to see if it's punchy enough, if it's got the acceleration, the torque, the braking that you need in your particular style of vehicle? Let us know in the comments. So that was the end of episode 3. And what we covered there, just as a summary, is we looked under the bonnet. We noticed that there is the facility to actually have a frunk in the front. So to me, it would have been convenient and actually beneficial if BYD themselves added that instead of having to go to third parties, because there are third-party providers that do make these and make the molds. I mean, end of the day, you have to spend some extra money to buy it, but it would have been nice if BYD did it themselves, because frunks are really good in EV vehicles, and I love them, and I'm sure other EV motorists do too. So yeah, we looked at the power of the vehicle, we looked at the external, the styling of it, who actually designed it, and so forth. So if you've got any comments or ideas or anything like that about this particular vehicle, leave comments below. It's great to chat about this sort of stuff. So if you really enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, share this content with someone who'd be interested, or just leave a comment, even just to say thanks. Now, there is another episode coming, so I hope to see you there. Bye for now.